that pretty much set up for us a national championship game of Georgia and Alabama, a rematch of the SEC championship game. Going into that game, I think Georgia was favored by 3, which was kind of interesting considering what Alabama had done to them just about a month before that. The game was played in Miami, Florida, the national championship game at Hard Rock Stadium down there. And it was a really, really good football game. Very close for a while. I think it was 9-6 at halftime, nothing but field goals. Both defenses were playing spectacularly. Alabama was able to creep ahead in the fourth quarter to go up 19-18. Excuse me, they went ahead 18 to 17, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I've got that wrong. But needless to say, it was pretty close. In fact, I can kind of check that for you real quickly here. It was 9-6 at halftime. At the end of the third quarter, it was 13-9 Georgia. And then I believe that Alabama went ahead 18-16. And then Georgia ended up scoring a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter, one an answer to the Alabama score, and then a pick six from the Georgia defense. Georgia scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter to win the game going away, 33-18. So, Nathan, we talked a lot about, during the season as we were doing these episodes on college football, we talked a lot about Georgia and how dominant they were. And then, of course, they ran up against Alabama in the SEC championship game and really looked like they had been exposed. But then they hammered Michigan and they were able to hang with Alabama and played much better defense than they did in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, they did.
I guess let me ask it this way to you, being a defensive player, and I know you didn't have a lot of experience with losing football games badly to other teams, but when you lose a football game and the other team seems to be having success against you, does that give you any added incentive, or do you think that's an advantage to a defense, or do you just go ahead and prepare for that next matchup as if you were preparing all over again?
It's a good question. I guess I guess my initial thought is you just prepare like you'd prepare for them the first time you met him, right?
Okay, right.
But obviously something didn't work the first time,
Right.
So you have to take that into account. I mean, that sounds like more of a thing for a question for a defensive coordinator. How is he going to prepare?
Right.
What kind of plays they're going to run? What kind of style of defense they're going to have? As far as the players, I mean, I feel like it's the same, right? You watch game film, you study your opponent, you study the players, you study your keys on offense,
Right.
which are going to be the same as before if it's the same team.
Right.
You try to maybe figure out if they did some new things against you the first time that you didn't see in film prior to the first game. You take that into account, and try to figure out kind of what you think they're going to try to do against you the second time. But I mean, you approach it the same way. I mean, you take the same things into account as you would any team you play. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that pretty much answers my question. Yeah.
What would you say to that?
No, I would agree with that. I think you hit it right on the head. I think that's a defensive coordinator question more than it is a player question, from the standpoint of the defensive coordinator decides what kind of game plan they're going to put together, and then they present it to the players, and the players go out there and prepare based on that. So, yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I think Georgia, one thing I noticed they did a lot better in this game that they did not do in the first game, and again, it was a different strategy. They pressured the Alabama quarterback, Bryce Young, quite a bit. And in the first game in the SEC championship, it seemed like they were so worried about his ability to run the football that they kind of played more zone and more coverage. And when guys weren't open, he just took off and ran, and he really hurt them with his legs. I think this time they went back to their attacking style of defense and said, "Look, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us throwing the football and making completions." And they pressured him, they sacked him a few times, they hit him a few times, and I think their defensive backs played excellent coverage. I mean, I saw at 7 or 8 plays where their defensive backs were in excellent position and made great plays on receivers. So I think Georgia just played the style of defense in the national championship game that got them to a 12-0 season without really worrying much about what had happened in the SEC championship.
Well, how about this brings me to the possibility of what I said before? Is you think they were trying to? You think they realized that they didn't need to win the SEC championship game? And they didn't want to, and they realized they may have to face Alabama at some point. So they didn't want to show whoever they had to play after that. They didn't want to show too much to other teams.
Well, that could be. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever know that answer 100% because who's going to tell it to us,
then
right?
maybe not off the bat, but maybe once they got down a few scores or something, they realized
Yeah.
like, hey, listen, we don't need to win this. We don't want to pull out all the stops.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility because I think they knew that Alabama was going to beat Cincinnati, and I think, or at least knew Alabama would probably beat whoever they played, and they felt confident enough that they would beat anybody else in the country. So yeah, that's very possible.
And not to mention, like, let's say Alabama gave them some trouble initially in that game, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they said, well, if we correct it right here, and we still end up losing, have to face Alabama again, they'll
know our corrections.
They'll know our corrections. Whereas if we just keep doing what we're doing and we just continue to get beat and we lose the game, next time we'll make the correction. Alabama hasn't seen it before.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true, and I think, I think you're right on that.
Maybe
one.
I'm underestimating the amount of pride teams take in being called the SEC champions. But as I said before, after the national championship game, Georgia's effectively the SEC champions.
Correct.
Because
they've beaten everybody.
Them and Alabama are 1-1 now, right?
Right.
Alabama, but they have a better SEC record than Alabama,
Right?
Right. Alabama lost an SEC team, right? Or did they not?
They did. They lost to Texas A&M.
There you go. So effectively they are. I know they didn't win the SEC championship game, but I mean, they can kind of call themselves the SEC. They beat the SEC champion in the national championship game, so
Right.
why does it matter?
Right. Well, anyway, it was a good football game. Very tight up until probably the last 5 minutes. I mean, Alabama, as I said, went up 18-13. Georgia took the ensuing kickoff, drove right down and scored, missed the 2-point conversion, so they were ahead 19-18. And then they scored again, and then they had a pick six, so it was 33-18 final score. But to your point, all that really matters to Georgia right now is Alabama may be wearing the SEC championship rings, but they'll be wearing the national championship rings, and have beaten the only team that was to beat them. So that obviously makes it very sweet for them. Let's